the United States is switching to a shadow policy apparatus. Okay, a shadow policy apparatus. We're going to go through it because it's a mix of debt surveillance, migration control, and supply chain domination. And really understanding this will help you see kind of what's going on right here. So don't imagine ICE's immigration enforcement. That's the wrong way to think about this. It is a soft domestic army, not just for immigration, but for control during social and economic unrest, functioning as a pretext for martial enforcement. Economic fear? No. Obedience tool. Obedience tool. Keep recession fears quiet while creating the conditions, right? And then high interest rates, strategic job insecurity, high cost of goods to slowly consolidate behavioral compliance. And then legal ambiguity, right? Because if citizens can be mistaken for deportable, who really has status? This allows power to be weaponized through vagueness. Are you really safe? But then here's one of the things. A lot of people talking about a recession, of this, of that. It's a control lever. Recession is a control lever, not a crisis. It's the suppression of recession headlines, right, would mean that economic spiral is being curated rather than responded to. So the Fed and the elites need to slow down, to cool wage growth, to break labor momentum, and to reestablish capital discipline. And the middle class collapse is being managed, not avoided. We're going to see like stealth liquidity extraction, right? Reverse QE, student loan repayments being reactivated, snap cuts, utility hikes, no cultural language around it, just quiet pressure. And then the trade war as spectacle. The real shift is tech sovereignty. The China headlines, right, don't really matter that much. It's a global decoupling campaign. The U.S. is trying to pull critical manufacturing and rare earth reliance away from China without public panic. That is the whole goal, right? AI and microchip nationalism, that's the whole goal. The United States consolidating control over chips and AI while quality offshoring inflation, right, and manufacturing externalities, right? China would be responding by building an alternative trade bloc, right? Think Belt and Road 2.0, but militarized. And then there's a return to national identity as economic strategy. If the deportation policies keep staying hidden how they are, right? Here's what's going on really deeply. Here's what's going on, because it's actually a quiet cultural reconciliation. It's a narrative pivot to nativism, right? And economic fear becomes a cultural fear about others taking jobs or corrupting systems. The citizens versus non-citizens is blurred on purpose, creating a two-tier system of rights. So the missing headline that you don't see is that strategic collapse has begun. Because there's a missing headline in the news right now, which is why we don't cover the news a lot on this page, because the news is not telling you the story. And I don't know how to say it. I almost should go after them. That's how they're not doing it, because it smells a lot like the careful collapse of old post-World War II. That's what it looks like. Right? What we're not being told is that we're being withdrawn from globalism, but not as an act of fear, but as a way to remold. Domestic enforcement rises while external entanglements shift toward economic cold wars instead of military ones. The systems aren't failing. They're being repurposed for a leaner, more controlled state model. So what we're actually headed toward is freedom versus algorithm, governance by platform, social services, identity verification, even voting becomes tied to digital platforms managed by corporate governance sponsorships, and score-based citizenship. Not unlike China's social credit, but subtler. Access to housing, healthcare, and loans could depend on compliance metrics like attendance, payment behavior, speech records, even who you associate with online, and facial recognition, right? Cross-border biometric networks. Under the banner, right, of immigration control and national security, this will entrench surveillance capitalism as policy enforcement, and we'll get border militarism as domestic doctrine. ICE will evolve into a national enforcement arm. That's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. Far beyond immigration, right? They will act extrajudicially, right, performing detainments, removals during civil unrest, economic protests, or in emergency zones. The border will move inward, affecting citizens who appear deportable, meaning racial profiling will become infrastructural. Right? Then, right, we have economic citizenship, class-based republic. You'll get the corporate class Americans, right, with full access to mobility, healthcare, education, and legal immunity. Tier 2 working class citizens monitor and manage through benefit conditionality, job programs, debt forgiveness, and access tied to obedience. And then the non-citizens, refugees, and shadow citizens, those lost in data errors, legal traps, debt collapse, used for labor, feared, and narrative. And then the false faith economy will bloom, right? A fusion of patriotism and financial compliance. You prove your loyalty by not voting. That's what it's going to come down to. By spending, subscribing, uploading, and believing in the narrative. Religious nationalism is going to rise. church-state fusion via family values rhetoric, but deployed to justify surveillance and anti-immigrant actions. Crypto and digital dollars may be offered as freedom, but they really just going to create a programmable money trap. We're going to see narrative warfare. Narrative warfare is domestic policy. The press doesn't just shut down, it's gamified. Journalists will be forced into attention economies where dissent can't survive unless viral, meaning that only spectacle reaches the people, which is why I felt the need to make this post anyway. Education becomes story warfare, right? History rewritten, dissenters reframed as unstable, patriarchy, myth-making, right? All of that gets tied to economic loyalty. We are seeing the birth of a simulated republic. That is what we're seeing the birth of. Still looks like democracy, still has elections, still waves the flag. Underneath, the law is selectively enforced, citizenship is conditional, dissent is pathologized, and loyalty is economized. The state doesn't declare itself, it forms through layered entropy, passive collapse, phrased as progress. But stay focused. Black people, right, we're spiritually stressed right now, and this is deep, and it's something we need to take advantage of, right? We deal with chronic spiritual exhaustion, cultural hyperproduction, masking hollowing, and language is mined, not lived from us. So vibe, lit, trauma, healing, grind become templates, not truths. Black culture is used to metabolize national contradictions. Joy masking decay, rage is entertainment, pain is market. We're not allowed to heal because our suffering is profitable. But here's what white people are in the middle of: narrative confusion. I feel erased. Where's my pride? Right? Increasing reliance on conspiracy, QAnon replacement theory, emotional breakdown outsourced to politics, outrage cycles are greater than the will to integrate, and faith systems fail to metabolize grief, and they get replaced with performance, prosperity gospel, nationalism. Here's the thing what we headed up to. We are headed toward a literal disaster with them. We are going to see involuntary confrontations with climate, economics, and identity dislocation hit white people. Misuse of AI to simulate healing. Therapy talk, mindfulness capitalism, spiritual grift. That's all what's coming up. Black culture is expected to carry the moral censor while being further denied rest. We only got two options: reckoning, right, or repression. That's what we're headed for everybody. But we're going to stay focused. This is what we need to do. Okay, we're going to go into what black people need to do to respond to this, because I wanted to paint the picture of what's actually going on, because the news articles won't cover it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they won't cover it. And it's happening live. So, this is just a good speed up for anybody who doesn't get the state of the situation.